Hello and welcome to the Legendary Backlog. We're glad you're here. In our show, we cover what we've been playing over the last week and a game over 5 years old in our 5-year Beyond segment. This is episode 4. I am Brian. You can find me at TryWinBrian on X. If you listen to this show and you like it, please follow us on Patreon. It's free and it'll give you access to all our sites. We're trying to build a community of people who love games. My co-host is also Brian. Would you like to introduce yourself, Brian?
Hello. Yes, I am Brian, and you can reach me at Nostalgic Pixel on X, Blue Sky, Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel, Nostalgic Pixel, and a Twitch channel, Nostalgic Pixel TV, and lastly, nostalgicpixel.com.
So, Brian, what you been up to this week?
Well, this week I've been playing a lot of Tetris. Since our last talk about Mario Kart 8, I went back and I tried some more, and I beat the Tinker Bell Cup, which is great. For 150cc, I've got all the gold medals for all courses that were in it, besides the DLC. So that was fun. That was a great way to start off the week.
It always feels good when you get that completion, doesn't it?
Well, it's just fun, like, to see that I still had it, like I could pull it off. And, they tried to throw you the wrench at the end of it. Anyway, I managed to get it. But other games I've been playing, the Resident Evil 4 Classic for the PlayStation 4, I was playing on the PlayStation 5, that started that New Game Plus and got that area completed that I wanted to go back and play, just to have coverage for my last time I played through it just a few months back, so that felt good.
So now you got the whole playthrough from beginning to end you can put on YouTube or something?
Yeah, I can edit together as like a long play from very beginning to end, because I only just was missing the very beginning part. I started the game a while back, but I just picked it up more recently and then now I go back into Resident Evil 4 Remake. I'm on Chapter 2.
I almost bought that game today.
Yeah, I think it's been going on sale lately.
Yeah, they have the gold version for $29.99 on the PlayStation Network. I almost bought Resident Evil 4.
Ooh, gold version?
Yeah, the gold version is $29.99. I don't know what the difference is between the gold version and the standard version, but I know with the Resident Evils, you always want to wait for the gold version.
Yeah, it's the DLC, but you can buy some of that stuff now. Like, what I like is the original music and the music and sound effect pack. Those are always nice.
Yeah, I love the original sound effects. They really bring me back to when I used to play Resident Evil back in the early days.
Yeah, it really harkens for me the whole vibe of it being Resident Evil or Resident Evil 2 or whichever remake when they have the audio packs.
Any other games you've been playing?
Like, just mostly I was playing more on my Analog Pocket, more California Games surfing. That was a lot of fun. I've been getting like 4,000 points the other day. That was good. In the 6,000s is my highest, but anytime I break 4,000, I'm doing some good things.
I gotta give that game a try, man.
It's the best surfing game that I know of.
California surfing, right?
Oh no, it's California Games for the Atari Lynx, and then there's 4 different games you can play. Surfing is the one I've been playing the most because the other 3 are not as good. Well, the BMX is fine. It's just the same course, right? So you just memorize the track, and that's about it. And then hacky sack one, foot bag, that is just tiresome. Pressing buttons while you try to keep it balanced the whole time or whatever. It just becomes tiring, wears out your thumb. And then skating, or the skateboarding one, is just impossible. I don't even know how it works. I've talked to other people, like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So, but the surfing is just rock solid and repeatable, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's got that magic gameplay, that perfect loop. It keeps you coming back.
Yeah, and it was the game that was included with my Atari Lynx. Even though I had bought like so many other Atari Lynx games, I just kept coming back to that one. And it was a lot of fun to play. And I had a friend, it was easy to share. So you just, in a minute, 30 seconds each turn. It's quick.
Sounds good.
Yeah, most people grew up, never seen a Lynx. And I never saw another person that had one either.
Well, the system didn't sell like gangbusters. It did sell.
Well, I know, but I never got a chance to do the link cables or anything.
That'd be cool. What I've been playing this week is I beat Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That was really good. I really enjoyed that game.
No, good deal.
If I was reviewing it, I'd probably give it like a 9.5 out of 10. It's not a perfect game, to me, because the open world stuff just kind of seems tacked on once you realize how it works.
They have the snowboarding?
No, they did not have snowboarding, but they had a bunch of other media games.
No snowboarding.
Yeah, there's some like 33 mini games in the game. No, I did not get to the snowboarding. I did not actually. That's interesting because I think you're gonna do that in part 3, because where you do the snowboarding is in Final Fantasy VII is where the Eagle Mountain is, and I don't remember going through that in this whole game. Now, granted, I did play for like 70 hours, and I picked it up and put it down at one point, so maybe it's in there, but I don't remember it at all. The Eagle Mountain, and I think that's where he snowboarded in the original one.
Well, cool. So it could show up in the third one.
Right. I think it might show up in the third one because the third one's not going to just be like, hey, let's go take down Sephiroth or whatever, right? It's going to be, you're going to go around the world again, Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Great game. I thought I was at the end last week, but it turns out I had an additional chapter to go through. So I went through 2 chapters this week, 13 and 14. Final bosses were great. There's this one chapter where it's just boss after boss. It kind of gets a little tiresome because it's just like you run over here, there's a boss. You run over here, there's a boss. You run down the middle, there's a boss. It was pretty tough. I got through it all. And at the end, I had a lot of stuff that I never used, like all these X potions, which fill your life completely. And I had like 7 of those, which is because you really don't need them unless you're like really in trouble. And I had like tons of Giga potions, which almost fill you up all the way. So I used a lot of that during battle. The battle system is just phenomenal. One of the best battle systems I ever played. I want to see more like this than the action combat in 16, personally, as an RPG player. That new game, Extension 33, that's a turn-based game that's getting like basically the highest rated game this year so far. I'm really excited to see that because maybe turn-based can come back a little bit because it almost felt like developers had just dodged it completely. Or even Square Enix was kind of moving away from it. But back to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The story was phenomenal. The characters were great. Even the characters I didn't really care about in my playthroughs of the original Final Fantasy VII, like Kate Smith, I didn't really care about. Yuffie, I didn't really care about that much. They made me fall in love with all the characters. So it was really good writing, really good acting, really good storytelling. So I was really impressed that they were able to get that game out as fast as they did after a remake came out. And after I beat Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I basically went on a binge of small games. So I started playing my Switch more this week because the Switch 2 is coming out. So it's kind of got me thinking, like, hey, if I'm going to buy a Switch 2, I need to use my Switch 1 more. I've been playing smaller games on that. I played a lot of Vampire Saviors on the Switch this week. Played Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. That's an amazing game. I played some Salt and Sanctuary. And then, of course, I played some Tetris this week, which was really good. I had a bunch of fun playing games this week. And after I beat a game that's like 70, 100 hours, I always like to just take a step back and play smaller experiences for a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that. I definitely like doing that, but I don't even have to play games that long to want to do that.
Right. I bought Valkyrie Chronicles for the Switch last night. It was on sale for $9.99, and I bought it because I actually own it on the PlayStation, and I've started it 2 times, but I've never finished it. But my goal is I got a trip coming up, and I'm going to take my Switch. So my goal is that I'm going to start playing it a little bit per night, and then really put some hours into it while on my vacation when I got some downtime. Hopefully I can get to the end of it this time. I love the combat in the game. It's a little bit too anime-ish for me.
It's got a really cool art style.
Yes, the art style is beautiful. You know what else is $9.99? I thought you'd be interested in on the Switch.
What?
It is a Valkyrie Profile. It's $9.99 on the Switch right now. I think it's on the PlayStation S5 as well on sale. So I'm thinking about grabbing that one. I'm debating between Final Fantasy VIII Remastered. Yeah, Final Fantasy VIII Remastered or Valkyrie Profile. But I probably need to stop buying games. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Really enjoy Scott Pilgrim vs. the World this week. That was every time I go back to that game.
Oh, good. You played some of that?
Yeah, every time I go back to that game, I'm just amazed at how good it is. I'm not very good at it. I need to team up with people to make it far. I just enjoy it. It's really good.
Well, yeah, there's definitely a lot of you grind to level up your character, and it's definitely better played with other people.
Like I went through this whole playthrough and I got as far as I could, and then I had to start back pretty far, and I was like, oh man. And then I was thinking, yeah, this is why you play the game online or with other people to help you out. But the art style is just amazing in that game, and the movie is so good and the game is so good. It's just they really kind of complement each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that movie is really good, and the game is so nice, and its various styles right off the comic book.
Yeah, it's a really nice game. Beautiful art style. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been playing. Vampire Saviors is still an amazing game. I mean, you can play it on the phone, you can play it on tablet, you can play it on Switch, you can play it on the Xbox, PS5, whatever. It's just such a good game. It's like anytime you play it, anytime I play it, I should say, it leaves me wanting more. It's like, okay, oh man, I died. I'm going to go back and level up again,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's go ahead and get into our 5-year Beyond segment. And this week we're talking about Tetris.
That's right. Tetris, it was created in 1985 by Alexei Pajanov. He is a Soviet software engineer at the time. It was during the USSR. The Soviet system didn't allow for things to be like intellectual property. It was or private enterprise or rights. It was owned. Anything that was created was owned. It was for the people, so that everyone owned it, which meant the government owned it.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of start off by saying that Tetris came out kind of at the height of the Cold War, or like towards the end of it, and the communist state was Russia was run by a communist state where everything belonged to everybody. No citizens had any rights or anything to own things like intellectual property, like we just said. It was just a time when the government basically ruled everything and owned everything.
Yeah, Tetris is now part of the Tetris company, which is the founder, who's the creator of Alexei Pajanov and Hank Rogers, which he was responsible for getting Tetris for the handheld rights for Nintendo's Game Boy, as well as the rights for console. And then now there's been more than 200 versions of Tetris that have been published by numerous companies on more than 65 different platforms. Tetris has become the second best-selling video game franchise with over 520 million sales, mostly on a mobile.
Yeah, that was really interesting to me because I didn't realize Tetris had become such a mobile game, because when I think about Tetris, I think about like the NES version, the Game Boy version, Super NES version. I didn't realize there were so many millions of copies sold on a mobile phone.
Well, I could totally see that.
Yeah, it makes sense because perfect screen.
A Game Boy game was so popular and it's handheld. Now it's just everyone's got a phone.
Tetris to Nintendo for the Game Boy and Nintendo Entertainment System NES. Both versions were released in 1989 thanks to Hank Rogers getting the right.
Yep. The Game Boy version was the best-selling version of Tetris. It's one of the best-selling video games of all time. 35 million sales popularized the console or the handheld.
Right. So there was a big battle with the rights between Hank Rogers pretty much sorted out and got the rights for the console releases and the rights to do pretty much anything with Tetris, right?
He got the rights for the handheld, then he's also secured the rights for the console. So Nintendo ended up having both for the Game Boy and Famicom and NES.
There were several people selling the rights to Tetris that didn't have the right to Tetris.
Yeah, there was one guy who he had the rights and he sold them to another British computer company, Mirrorsoft, and they since then also sold the rights off to other companies like Atari and Tengen, and then even Hank Rogers had got them through their source. So, they've been licensed out to all different companies that a lot of them all thought they were getting it from the source when it turns out that it wasn't exactly the case the way it was written. There's a really good movie that covers this called Tetris, and that came out 2023. It mostly it's an entertaining movie about Hank Rogers going to Russia during the time to see about getting the rights when the rest of the world was also showing up there trying to get the rights. Iron Curtain just trying to figure out how they're gonna commerce with these capitalists from different countries that have interests. Anyway, it's entertaining. It's a wild place to be at the time. It seems like not much privacy, obviously. Just to even use the phone, you want to know who you want to talk to for what. Or if you good luck getting a hold of a working phone, goes to operator.
Yeah, but Hank Rogers was able to go over into Russia, as closed off as Russia was at the time, and he was able to navigate all the way to get to the right people. He was able to finally secure the rights from Elorg. So he finally was able to get the rights from Elorg. And once he did, that's what started Tetris being bundled in with the Game Boy and NES release that happened in 1989.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It made it, that made it the Game Boy not just sell to kids, but to sell to everyone.
Right. It made it in everybody's machine.
Mm-hmm.
Most notably in Japan, almost everybody on the train felt like they had a Game Boy if you look at pictures from back then.
Yeah, from what they're talking about, it was originally they're going to maybe be like Super Mario Brothers. Their Super Mario Land would be a pack-in, and he's like, no, Tetris. Everyone will play it.
Looking up research for this episode, I saw a picture of Hillary Clinton playing Tetris on the Air Force One.
Mm-hmm.
back when Bill Clinton was president.
Yeah, it's a neat photo.
Tetris touched everybody. It wasn't just like for gamers. I mean, it was for everybody. It was for mom. It was for dad. It was for everybody.
Yeah, but fortunate it wasn't for my parents.
Get to the game as I knew it whenever I was a child. We had the NES version. I wanted a Game Boy, but I never got a Game Boy. But we had an NES, and we got Tetris for it. And we used to have Tetris nights where we passed the controller around. And I used to think it was really unfair because my older sister was so good at it. She could get to like level 14 like consistently. So her games were always longer than mine. And I would usually die like around level 10 or level 9. Yeah, she was really good. We used to have Tetris nights to just see who can do the high score. And my parents thought it was the greatest thing ever because, instead of like Mario just collecting coins and jumping on mushrooms, thought this was shapes, this was creative thinking, this is going to make us smarter. All these things my parents thought about Tetris. Yeah, it was a really good time that I remember as far as, playing Tetris with the family. Played a lot solo too. I mean, there was like a couple years there where nobody could get enough Tetris.
Yeah, I played at my friend's house. It was fun.
Going back this week, I played a lot of different versions of Tetris, probably about, no joke, like 10 versions of them. But my favorite is still the NES version. I really like that version the best.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's still my favorite one. I like the blocks. I prefer the blocks to be segmented off, in little tiny blocks that make up a whole block. I don't like it when the Tetris, the whole block is just like solid color with maybe some texture on it. So I prefer that. I think it's just programming from when I was younger. The other thing about Tetris is that I don't really like the modern features of Tetris where they show the blocks down at the bottom, because it feels like cheating after you play the old school way a lot, which I did this week. It seems like too much of an advantage. I'm more of an old school guy when it comes to Tetris. Like when I think about Tetris, I just think about the NES version is what I want to play. Although I did play, like I said, several versions. I played a couple, notably on the NES and Game Boy, that were really good. Tetris has been on every console. It's sold on 200 versions of numerous devices, pretty much. It's an amazing game. I mean, it's something that everybody can play. And it's real simple to figure out, but it's hard to master. It's totally unforgiving. When you could be on a totally good run and just get that one piece you really don't have a spot for. And if you put that in the wrong spot, it's so hard to recover, especially if you're like halfway up, and you've been waiting for a line to do a Tetris or something.
Oh, yeah. No, and I hear you. Also, this week, I've been playing a lot of Tetris as well. Multiple different versions of it. I don't know. I didn't really play the NES version nearly as much as I played my friend's Game Boy and played it off of that. So for me, like my nostalgia is playing the Game Boy version. So I was playing on the Analog Pocket, which is a lot of fun because it can emulate the screen to make it look like the original version, the Pocket version, the Pocket Lite version, or all the other kinds. So I was playing around with that. But I don't know. The modern ones are fine. The coolest Tetris, the one I could play on my PlayStation VR, that one's a lot of fun.
Tetris Effect?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very visual.
Yeah, Tetris Effect is a really good game.
Yeah, it's fun playing it VR. It's like right in your face.
I like the new Tetrises and I enjoy to play them. For some reason, I just go back to the NES version. I don't know why. But what I will say is that one of my favorite games about Tetris that was really unique was Tetris Sphere. Played it a little bit this week. It was on the N64. It's a forgotten game, Like I've seen lists of all the games on the N64 and they leave that off. I mean, it's like totally forgotten. It was a really interesting Tetris because the way it worked was you moved around a sphere and you place the blocks, and as you place the blocks and you got a certain amount of area covered or lines, it would explode off the block, and then you would have to keep digging deeper until you broke the sphere as your ultimate goal. And the levels would get harder and harder and harder. And I really enjoyed that game. At first I hated it, but my friend Jerry, I was at his house and he had like 3 games and on this N64, and one of them was Mario, which I was really tired of because I played so much at home. And the other one was GoldenEye, and I was kind of sick of GoldenEye because his brother played GoldenEye so much that when we played multiplayer, he could actually kill you right where you spawn. Like if he killed you, he knew exactly where you'd spawn, and as soon as you spawn, you die. It was really cheap stuff. I'm glad they fixed spawn points nowadays.
Yeah, I remember that could be the case if you got yourself caught in a loop where by the time they killed you, they could return to your spawn point and get you. That was frustrating. Yeah, I played a bunch of different versions. I played the close. I didn't play the N64 one you're talking about, but I did play a 3D one on the Virtual Boy, which was interesting. So it was like they would drop down a well and you could fill them in spots, and it was again like a Virtual Boy game. Even if I was playing on emulator, after like 15 minutes, I had to like stop playing because my head was not feeling too great. Can't play it that much. And then there was other ones I played, like a Tetris on the Atari Lynx, which I don't think is a homebrew, which was neat, that came out. I played a Sonic Tetris on the Genesis. It was a lot of fun. It had a change the sprite background from like the Sonic the Hedgehog backgrounds sprites, the music and soundtrack with the Sonic games. Just it was a different way of playing it. So it was just fun checking out all the different variations and releases of it that have come out over the years.
The variations are different, but they're the same, you know?
Have you ever played the Famicom version? Because the Famicom version is messed up. They swap the buttons around from what you're used to on the NES. So it just feels like it's a handicap almost. It makes it harder to play, even though they weren't trying to make it harder to play. It's just that they fixed the controllers on the NES version versus when they first released it on the Famicom.
No, I haven't played it on the Famicom, but what I did play it on, and I didn't know they made this version, was they had a Master System version. That was pretty interesting. It was actually pretty decent color and pretty decent graphics for back in the day. I still prefer the NES one though, but it was a good version. That was pretty interesting to see that the Tetris was on the Master System, because when I was younger, I never heard about it or saw it.
Yeah, I've definitely I've watched some people that are really good at Tetris, streaming on Twitch over the years in different competitions. It's pretty impressive. I like playing it, but I can't get that good. And I'm like you, I can be doing pretty good, and then it just takes like one wrong or poorly timed or placed one, and it just kind of throws your whole off, and it's harder to recover from than it is in some other puzzle games.
Yes, it is. After playing Luminous, Tetris is so unforgiving.
Yeah, or just like Puzzle Fighter and stuff, like where the gems, they can come back around, they blow up, like you get chain reactions, but you don't really get chain reactions in Tetris.
You know, the thing about like Luminous is like your failures can be good down the road, because the thing about Luminous is like you really want to get a high score, so you got to have a lot of blocks to make a high score, to get like a lot of luminesces and clears. So your failures can actually benefit you later when you have a lot of blocks that you can compound with what's dropping. In Tetris, you make one or two mistakes, it's like game over.
Oh yeah, and I played different variants of it too, like the Puya Puya Tetris. I remember I imported that back a long time ago because I didn't think the rights would ever get sorted out for the U.S. It was like a Sega game in Japan. But I'm really bad at buying import games, thinking, no, they'll never release it out here, and then sure enough, it gets released like 6 months later or a year later.
I think Tetris is something that's going to be around for like 100 years, to be honest.
Oh no, yeah, this game's solid, and the fact it's just available, and it seems like on anything and everything can play Tetris, and it's still very popular. I would be bad for me to use a touch screen for buttons. I probably get used to it, but I don't know if I could feel like I was at my best playing it without buttons and a controller. I could play it off a keyboard. You can see that.
Been several jobs I played Tetris off a keyboard when I had downtime back in the day. I love Tetris. Tetris, yeah, and the thing about Tetris is, like I said, I think it'll be around like 100 years from now. I think a lot of the games that we play, we think will be around 100 years from now, but I could totally see a version of Tetris. I could see holographic Tetris in your living room.
Oh yeah, that'd be really fun.
Or like augmented reality Tetris, where you're, I mean, there's just so many things that they could still do it. And the great thing about Tetris is it really does transform to any kind of platform or console around in a good way. Whereas not all games do that.
Yeah, it was fun going back playing all the different versions of Tetris. Just trying out different versions. My go-to is like the Game Boy one, and like you said, your go-to is the NES one. I'll have to play more of the NES one. I remember it was always interesting that because that game got released in so many different systems, you'd find things like there's some obscurities, like the Philips CDI system has a version of Tetris that's actually kind of unique, and that it's different than a lot of the others. It's got like CD sound, but the CD sound isn't what you will necessarily expect on all of them. They're kind of almost sleepy music by the ocean, like, and everything. Just kind of put, like, a lull you to sleep almost. And it has like a, full digitized background or whatever, trying to show off it's not video, or moving graphics, but just like still graphics. Interesting that there's all these, it's just been released on so many different things, and you could just have different experiences sort of playing on them. There's like super Tetris games and Tetris 2 or 3, and I don't know, those seem to be just more of the same, which is fine. It wasn't like, it didn't feel like a Street Fighter type of version of, Tetris. It wasn't like a Super Street Fighter or Tetris.
Yeah, they didn't have 8 blocks, you know.
Oh, I did play some hacks that were really kind of messy. There was like, in one of the things, it came up with these really odd blocks, and it just didn't make any sense. And they'd be like side by sides. Interesting that they were just trying to mix it up and see what it could come out with it. It was a tough game that I wouldn't try to get good at.
What I noticed about Tetris is, this is one of the things I want to throw in. I know we've been talking about it for a while. Tetris, for me, got a lot easier when I quit trying to clear lines. Instead, I focused on trying to make room for the next piece. Once I did that, I like doubled in my ability in Tetris. So I think that's an interesting way of looking at it, because I was pretty crummy when I coming back, and then I was like, why am I so bad? Then I started looking at the next block. I was like, oh, okay, I need space for a square, or I need space for a line. And what's interesting about the way the blocks come is they're so random. I've had games where I got like 6 squares out of like 9 pieces, and then I had games where I got like 5 lines in a row. You never know what to make space for until you see what's coming next. But I always try and leave space for lines and squares, because everything else I can kind of fit in wherever,
Mm-hmm. Like you said, if you get all the like 4 lines in a row at once, is it called a Tetris?
Yeah, if you put a line down and every single one of those clear, I think it's 5 lines in a row. That's a Tetris. Because I always start my games just trying to get Tetrises only, and I can confirm every version I played, if you get 2 Tetrises in a row, you automatically go to the second level.
Yeah, it's fun, like I said, watching like the people compete or try to get new records the way they play, and they basically just get Tetrises.
Oh, some people are so good at this game.
Yeah, like Rubik's Cube for them. They just solve it. And basically, I play until until there's some fatigue, and then I start making mistakes, and then it's over. But those can be long games.
Yeah, Tetris is one of those things where you can do phenomenal one run, and then the next run you can like 6 levels in.
Yeah,
it's a lot of randomness, and it's a lot of how you stack the blocks, and really a lot of it depends on when you get the pieces. And
also, like what we said with other games, like this is like the blueprint that so many other like puzzle games that aren't Tetris kind of grew from, which is a lot of fun.
We could be here all night talk about influences of Tetris. Tetris was really the first puzzle game that just really knocked. I was talking to my daughter about Tetris, and I was explaining to her, and because she'd never really played Tetris, and that's a mistake on my fault. I never introduced her to Tetris, but I was interesting to her, and then she's like, Dad, you should play Block Blast. And I was like, what's Block Blast? It's a mobile phone game that she downloaded for me. It's free. Basically what you do is you have Tetris like pieces, but there's a square, and you just put them in the square, but you only are given 3 pieces. You have to play all 3 pieces before you get more 3 pieces to play. But anyways, your goal is to get like combos and multiple lines knocked out, and then you go until you can't play anymore. That was a really fun game, and that totally spawned from Tetris, and that's just one example. Not to mention that even all these years later, Tetris isn't like the zeitgeist of video games, but they continue to release it on consoles, so it's got to be making money.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's staying relevant with that movie that came out a few years ago, and then there's been, in like 2004, there was a documentary, I think it was on the BBC. Like I said, it's 65 different platforms. It's almost to the level of where like people like to test hardware to see if it can run Doom. This is like the other game they want to see if it can play, Tetris.
I mean, I'm surprised like fridges don't have Tetris nowadays.
Oh yeah,
Tetris is like Skyrim. It's going to be on everything. In fact, Tetris is even on more things than Skyrim. That game's been released on so much.
It is one of those other games that's kind of a go-to game for me to pick up on a handheld and play the Game Boy version in a portable way, which is a lot of fun.
I will say that the pictures you showed me of the Analog Pocket playing Tetris from the Game Boy looked really good. It looks really nice. It looks really authentic, but it's so clear too.
That was a big sell for me to get an Analog Pocket, is what the screen could do for them. The way I have played Game Boy games is through my Game Boy Advance. It plays my Game Boy Color and my Game Boy games. Even though I didn't get a Game Boy when it first came out, once I got a Game Boy Advance, like I was buying the Zelda Game Boy Color games and the other Zelda games, and just older like Game Boy games as well play on it because hey, I missed out. I was trying to play catch up on some of them, even though I got to play friends' games. You know how you were talking about it was unfair for like Tetris at home. You guys would take turns. Be similar to me. Like I'd go to a friend's house and they say they're playing. Could be Tetris, but in this case, let's say like Mega Man. Mega Man's a game that you really want to have a lot of time with, and so since they owned it, they were really good at it. Like I would die like less than 5 minutes, and they would beat half the game.
My final thoughts on Tetris is that Tetris is a game for everybody, young, small, old, doesn't matter what gender, doesn't matter what politics. I think Tetris works for everybody. It's almost like a beautiful thing that a puzzle game like that can transcend so much of humanity when there's so many things that like we choose to set sides on and difference us. I think it's a really good I think it shows that how games can transcend cultures and transcend audiences. And my dad knows how to play Tetris, and my mom wasn't even a gamer, but she had Tetris on her phone. I mean, she was a mobile gamer, so there's that. Like I said, it's with us, and it's going to be with us for a while. They continue to make different versions of it, and some of them are really cool. Some of them will go a little bit out of the way, And one of the things we didn't talk about was the game modes. The game modes are pretty fun that some of the Tetris people have, where you already start off with lines. I almost prefer to start that way personally because it gives you like a little bit more challenge at the beginning of the game, and it's fun to always clear down to the bottom after you start with some lines.
Yeah, that is a fun way to jump into it, especially if you feel like you have a short amount of time and you don't have to build. It could take a while before you're in that situation, but it's nice to just deal with it early on and feel the accomplishment when you kind of catch it all up.
What did you think about the level select that Tetris has a level select? What did you think about that? Because I noticed like every version.
I just zombie it through the endless pretty much.
Yeah, I do too.
The only times I really played around with ones is when they played around with Tetris, like when it was like Puyo Puyo Tetris, where it was like you can play half Puyo Puyo, half Tetris, or both at the same time, or whatever. Like those versions in the past, I've paid attention to. But off the way you're describing it, it reminds me that just seems like a really good way of jumping into a game of Tetris, like you're saying. But often I just like clicked right through to the endless and play endless instead of like different versions.
Right. I do too. Most of the time I play endless, and I always start off at level 1 or 0, whichever. They're usually 0 or 1. I think it's interesting that every Tetris I played, they give you access to start all the way up to like level 9 or 10. That's good for practicing, I guess, but I just like to slowly build up, and all of a sudden the blocks are coming so fast, you're like, wait a minute, I can't even get it across to the other side of the screen.
Oh yeah, there's points when it gets so fast that I have a hard time with, for sure, especially if I've been building up and it comes at a bad time.
Yeah, when you get to level 11, you got to be like 3 lines on the board, or you're not going to do very well. So what are your final thoughts on Tetris, Brian?
Well, it definitely feels like a classic that aged as well, and because it's a game that can reach such a wide range of people that can from kids to adults to grandparents, everybody seems like they can jump in and play it.
The everybody video game. That's crazy. 520 million copies. That's like double what Grand Theft Auto 5 sold.
I mean, this is like a decade too before Pokemon, so this was the thing that sold the Game Boy right out the gate and kept it and selling its entire life cycle.
Yeah, the Game Boy version became the best-selling version of Tetris and one of the best-selling video games of all time with 35 million sales, which popularized the console. It definitely was one of those big bangers for the Game Boy.
Definitely was. And that again, for me, that's the version I like to go back to.
Game Boy version, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You played the Game Boy version as a kid. I played the NES version, so I think a lot of that's our nostalgia coming back. You can make an argument that the NES version isn't that good, but I could like totally argue it is.
No, I'm sure the NES version's fine. It's just like if I'm playing on a small screen, I like the Game Boy version.
Oh yeah.
Plus the music, chiptune music. That I can definitely say that's a draw for me.
The original Tetris's, what was it, 89 version? The music was just great. Some of the newer ones, I think they're not as classic feeling, but they are Tetris,
Yeah, and if I really want to get in the zone and put on like the PlayStation VR and play Tetris Effect, that's a different situation altogether. sensory overload with the visuals and the sound in it, but it's a lot of fun. You can really focus.
Yeah, I will say this though, the best version I've ever played was Tetris Effect in VR. And that's why I kind of think we're gonna have like Tetris and all like an AR and all these things because it was such a good game.
Oh, an AR Tetris game would be great, but also I've used that Tetris game for people who aren't familiar with VR or comfortable. That's like, here, play Tetris in it.
Yeah, that is the best version I've played. Not my favorite, but it is definitely the best version.
But when I have an itch for it, I just pick up like a handheld and play like the Game Boy version.
I know, it's so easy to pick up a handheld and play Tetris. I mean, that's basically what I did all week.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brian, what are you up to this week?
Well, this week I've been watching James Bond movies. I'm going to continue watching those. Also, now that I've finished with Resident Evil 4 Classic, I'm going to continue playing Resident Evil 4 Remake, and that'll be fun. I'm looking to doing that. I'm going to take a break on Mario Kart for now. It was a lot of fun playing that. I'm going to, again, probably play more Resident Evil. I've been put together another list of movies people might have missed growing up, even at that time or just now.
Good.
So post that on my website, nostalgicpixel.com.
Yeah, that's really good that you're keeping that up. I think that's really neat because it's awesome when you go back and find a gem of a movie that you had no idea existed and maybe you were a little young to see, but it was out around your time. I love to find new movies.
Oh yeah, and especially it's like an actor that you're familiar with, but you're familiar with his later work, and you find out his earlier work.
And sometimes they're like totally different actors between young and old.
Oh sure, like Leslie Nielsen, like you and I know him from the Naked Gun movies, and Airplane, but before that he had a lot of serious roles and stuff that were different in like the 70s.
Yeah, that's a good example. I'm going to be still playing smaller titles after beating Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I got my eye on one game that I'm going to start playing maybe this week, maybe next week. In the spirit of backlog, I'm trying to play Alan Wake. So here's the thing. I played Control, and I didn't really like Control that much. And most of my problem was the environment because everything looked gray and it just kind of got boring. But I did like the combat.
Yeah.
Alan Wake, I've been told by like so many people that Alan Wake is such an amazing game. Alan Wake 2 is supposed to be even better, right? Like one of my friends says Alan Wake 2 is like the best game he ever played, right? And he's played a lot of games.
Oh really? That's high praise.
I mean, he liked it so much he offered to buy it for me so I could play it, but I was like, no, I need to play Alan Wake 1 before I play Alan Wake 2.
What version of Alan Wake 1 do you have?
I have the remastered one on the PlayStation.
4 or 5?
Both. It's a 5 version is what I got downloaded.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I had the 4 version on disc, but I think about getting upgraded.
Well, they gave it to us on PlayStation Plus, I think. So you probably have it. You just don't have it downloaded.
Okay, I'll have to check. Oh yeah, I know I don't have it downloaded. I don't think I'm gonna revisit Resident Evil 4 Classic, so I should be able to clear that off my hard drive and add a new game.
Are you gonna make a walkthrough for Resident Evil 4?
I don't know if it'll make a walkthrough, but it'll be more like a playthrough for Resident Evil 4 Classic. The remake, I will be streaming that, and I have been streaming it. I might stitch that one up together and put it up later as a VOD, but I've been making the VODs available, but it'll be more like a gameplay through, it's not a tutorial. It'll be just me playing.
Speaking of streaming, where can people find you, Brian?
Well, thanks, Brian. Yeah, on streaming, it's Twitch at Nostalgic Pixel TV. Everywhere else, it's Nostalgic Pixel.
Okay, good to know. You can find me at Trywin Brian on X. We want to thank you for listening to the show, and you liked it, please give us a 5-star review on your podcast app of choice, and you can follow us on Patreon at the Legendary Backlog. It's free and will give you access to all our sites. We're trying to build a community of people who love games. That's pretty much it for this episode. See you next time.
See you next time.